Hello, 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 and welcome. Welcome. What is going on? What's going on, people? We are making sure we are all set up here on the Ideas That Ignite page, as well as on Instagram. What up, my cousin? My cousin's in the house. First person to show up. All right, all right. I see you, Facebook. I see you. Just gonna give it a couple seconds here for everybody to get on board. What up, the Doom? The Doom just joined. What's up? Who we got in the Facebook group? Who we got in the Facebook group? Yo, today I'm amped. I'm amped. So for the past month or so, we've been working on stories. Stories to kind of like really start to get those memories, those things that are a part of us, like just popping, right? Kabooey! Oh my gosh. Yo, brother, you are on a mission. I gotta talk to you sometime soon. We've been loving your art. Loving your art. What up, Amanda? Yes. What up, Facebook? All right. So today, as you all know, we have been rocking it out with our stories for the past month. I know a lot of you are new. So today I'm actually going to be using some slides to talk about the transition that a lot of us can make from going from being speakers or being influencers or being people who are really passionate leaders into actually sharing an idea. And we have to be really specific about this because an idea is very different from a keynote. An idea is very different than a lecture. So we're going to be breaking down. We're going to be breaking some of this stuff down. Like, what are your ideas? What are your stories? How does this all come about? And we're just going to be building and building and building for the next month. All right. So I want to make sure that we are good in the Facebook group. Yeah, we are good. We are live in the Facebook. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Awesome. All right. So here's what we're going to do to kick us off. For any of you who are on the on the Instagram Live, we're going to be sharing some slides today. So if you want to check out the slides, you're going to have to join us on the Ideas That Ignite page. All right. On the Ideas That Ignite page. If you can't do that, if you're on Instagram, if you're watching this, I'm going to do my best to still just like walk you through with my words, everything that's popping off. But just as a heads up, if you do want to see the slides, you want to head over to the Ideas That Ignite Facebook group. All right, y'all. All right, so here we go. Let's get this party popping. Let's get the party popping. Give me a quick second here. I am going to start off with some slides. So I just got to make sure I got the right one. Share my screen. Get my tab. Got my slide share going on here. Oops. Might be helpful if I go back. All right. Okay, so first and foremost, welcome. Welcome to any of you who are brand new to me, to this group, to this program. My name is Dawn Fraser. I am a storytelling speech coach. I love this stuff. Absolutely love this stuff. I've been working as a coach for about almost 10 years now. Almost 10 years. It's hard to believe that. But if you all have heard of The Moth, I've been working with The Moth for about 8 years. Moth is an organization based out of New York City where people get up, they stand, they tell stories, true stories from their lives all over the world. So I've been blessed to be able to travel around the world with The Moth, from Kenya to Tanzania, Uganda, South Africa, India, multiple states around the nation. I've worked with a lot of celebrity clients directly, people who have directly worked with me, everybody from Common to Jackie Cruz from Orange is the New Black, to a shark on Shark Tank. Have a non-disclosure with her, so I can't really talk too much about that. Anyways, point being that part of my journey of becoming a public speaker pivoted when I landed on the stages of TED. And I'll tell you why, because as somebody who wanted to be able to continue using my words and my stories to inspire and to connect with people, there was no better of an amplifier for me or in my professional career than TED. And so I've made it my mission. Like these past couple of months have been crazy, y'all, just straight up crazy. But I've been on a mission to make sure that if you have an idea, if you have something that's burning inside of you, if you have something that you want to share with the world, now is the time to start to get ready. Because so many times with major speaking gigs, they book like 6 months out, they book like a year out. So today we're going to first talk about ideas, how ideas are different from lectures, how they're different from keynotes. But I'm going to share with you my process of coming up with an idea. We're going to hopefully bring some of y'all on board to actually share the screen with me as we talk about your ideas, and then we'll be going from there. All right? Sound like a plan? Sound like a plan? You down? You down? All right. Let's do this. All right. So first of all, I want to start off with what is an idea? What makes a good idea for a talk? So when we think about ideas come from everywhere. Ideas come from everywhere. There could be something that you were inspired by, something that you saw, something that you've experienced in your professional life. But here are 4 main things that I look for when I'm looking for people that are interested in landing on the stages of TED or TEDx. And this is all stuff that I've gathered, as I mentioned, from personally speaking on the stages of TED, working directly with people who have spoken at TEDx and TED, as well as my work as a coach. So a lot of this stuff is kind of like compiled from a lot of different places. This is the first slide I want to share with you about developing an idea. What makes a good idea for a talk? So the first thing that we want to think about is taking evidence or observations that draw a larger conclusion. So a lot of times, some of us might see something the same. Like we see an incident, we see a moment, something that happens in our life, and a lot of us might see it the same. But what might be that slight shift where you can see something slightly new? Or what might be something slightly surprising about this perspective? Can you challenge a belief? Or can you take an old idea and turn it into a new light? So for example, in my own talk, many of you know, or if you don't know, if you're new to me, you might have heard that my speech is called Special Needs and Special Gifts. And it started off as a story that I shared in New York City at a show called The Story Collider. And as part of that show, I was sharing about an incident at the Special Olympics where my twin brother comes and he basically changes my perspective entirely on everything from like sportsmanship to what it means to be an equal to what it means to have special needs. All right. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this in just a moment. But the first thing that we want to think about in terms of an idea is if something that you've seen that could possibly be something new, it's interesting, it challenges a belief, or it sheds light on an old idea in a new light. Okay. Hello, and welcome to crafting and sharing your TED idea. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to break down for you my top 9 prompts. My top 9 prompts that I use when I'm thinking about like what might my idea be, and where is that based out of. So I want you to go ahead and, if you need a second, to go and grab a pen, grab a paper. Some of these prompts might resonate with you. Some of them might not. It's all good. The idea is to pick the ones that do, because all we need is one idea. Okay? All we need is one idea. All right? You all ready to jump off into this? All right. So the first thing that I want you to think about in terms of ideas, personal story. What is a story that people have found compelling that you've shared? Maybe you had a unique experience. Maybe you had a compelling experience. What stories have you shared that perhaps were interesting or piqued the interest of others? So ideas might come from personal stories. My speech came from a personal story. I'm going to get into a little bit more into that later. But I want you to first think, might your idea come from an experience that you had that other people found interesting, unique, or compelling? And why? Okay. So that's going to be the first framework. The second framework to think about is maybe your idea is coming from one of your professional experiences. So, what are some of the things that you have done, that you've accomplished, that have made you proud? Reflect back on your professional career, past 3 years, the past 5 years, the past 10 years, however long you've been doing whatever it is that you do. What are some of the things that you've done or that you've accomplished that have made you proud? That's going to be the second framework. The third framework that we're going to lean into a little bit is, what advice would you share with a younger version of yourself, a child, or a mentee? What advice would you share with a younger version of yourself, a child, or a mentee? What up, Devin? So glad to see you here on Instagram Live, brother. All right. So we're starting off with our ideas. Ideas come from all over the place, as I mentioned. So I'm going to be sharing with you a bunch of different examples, but it might come from a personal story. It might come from a professional experience. It might come from a vision about, where you are now and what you might want to share with somebody who's younger than you or a mentee. The next thing I want you to think about are your emotions. Your emotions. So what do I mean by this? It means, like, when was a time that you were surprised? When was a time that you were excited or angered? When was a time that you were intrigued or compelled to take action? Emotions, a lot of times, are so good at indicating what you're really passionate about. And a lot of times that passion can feed into an idea that others maybe hadn't thought about, or others didn't really realize was an important issue, right? But since the core and the crux of stories are emotion, we want to think about all different types of emotion, because every single speech, every single idea, every single TED or TEDx talk has to have a story in it. And every single story is based off of some type of emotion. Okay? So I do have a grid of that has all these different emotions. I kind of explain them in much broader detail, because I want you to think about the whole range of human emotions, which there are billions. But when was a time that was surprising that compelled you to take action, or a time that you were intrigued that compelled you to take action? Okay, so leaning into the emotions. The fifth thing I want you to think about is your perspective. So, what is the topic or an issue or a stance that you've taken, which you decided that maybe you weren't right about it, or maybe you reversed the way that you thought about it, or is modified or is heightened, right? What's up, Instagram? I see you lighting up. I'm curious to know, was there a time then you were very kind of adamant about something, or you thought that something was right doing it one way, and then you realized, oh snap, I got this all wrong. Right? When was the time that you had a change of perspective about something that you were passionate about, something that you knew a lot about, but things changed? Okay. The sixth thing I want you to think about is expertise. So expertise is a little bit of a misnomer, because I think that a lot of people think that they need to be the expert in homelessness, or you need to be the expert in equity and inclusion, or the expert. You don't need to be the expert, but you should be somewhat of an expert about the topic that you're talking about. And so when you think about being an expert, quote unquote expert, just think are you one step ahead of majority of the other people who you might be able to speak with, right? If you have some type of expertise or something that you're learning and you're teaching it to others, that also counts. So what are you known for, personally, professionally? What do people ask you about on a regular basis? Okay, so 4, 5, and 6 are emotions, your perspective, or your expertise. These are all different ways of I'm just throwing out different ways of getting to the core of ideas. Okay. Got three more to go through here. Just want to make sure that y'all are good on, oh, you know what? Let's do this instead. There we go. There we go. Sorry, I just had to change the perspective a little bit on the Facebook group so y'all could see this a little bit better. Okay, there you go. Awesome. So, give me a second here. Okay, excellent. So now, number seven, I want you to think about are your values. What is something that you value? And when was this value either challenged by others, or when was this value like really like kind of like prominent and standing out to you? And how did you respond? Did you respond in a negative way? Did you respond in a positive way? Tell me about a time that your values were challenged, and tell me about how the way that you actually responded to that challenge. Okay. Number 8 are your curiosities. I'd love for you to tell me about a time that somebody responded to you, hmm, you know what? That's really interesting. That's really interesting. And then they took a drink of water. Nourishing. All right. So, what are your ideas? What are those curiosities when people were like, "Huh, that's an interesting point, Don." What was that for you? And last but not least, number nine on the idea generator is Yoda. Yoda. So if y'all don't know what I'm talking about, you know Yoda, that little creature, um, Star Wars, that kind of like helps the protagonists to actually conquer, to overcome. Um, in life, we all have either needed a Yoda or have been a Yoda, right? Meaning we've all either been a guide or we've needed to be guided, right? So when was that time that you were able to guide someone else? And how? How were you able to guide them? How were you able to guide them? And what was that moment all about? Because a lot of times, if we're able to guide somebody through something, if we're able to like see a path for them when they don't even see the path themselves, then a lot of times you can hone into like, what was it that I was doing? And what idea might that be that might need to be passed on to a larger audience, right? Is this making sense so far? Is this making sense so far? Let me go over to my Facebook people. Let me go over to my Facebook people and just check in with y'all. Check in with y'all before going to this next section. Give me a quick second here. Okay, great, great. Looks like you guys are all good. I can't see any of the comments yet, so if you're commenting, just give me a moment. I'm going to come back to the comments in just a moment. I'll be coming back to the comments in just a moment. Okay, great. So here we go. So I want you to now to think about who you are relative to these questions. Okay. So as I mentioned, no, you do not need to be an expert in your topic, but you do need to be factual. So you do need to make sure that if you're telling anything that's like science-based to data-based, you do need to be factual. So make sure you're checking your facts. Make sure if you are including any type of data that you're using reliable sources. There's so much in the media these days about misinformation, fake news, that if you submit something that has data or stats or any type of facts, you're going to want to make sure that you are using reliable sources because it will be checked, it will be double checked, it will be triple checked. What's up, Jason? My brother. We're talking about ideas. We're getting some ideas out there, brother. I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission. 2021. We're lining up some stages of TED and TEDx. All right. So And of course, if you are talking about any type of thing that's technical or data driven, make sure that you're consulting with other experts. Just make sure that you're consulting with other experts in the topic, because TED and TEDx will be fact checking it. And if it's interesting, if it's fascinating, you know, it's going to like light them up just the way it lights me up. So that's the way that we want to think about expertise. Okay, like I said, you don't need to be the expert, but you do need to be an expert in your topic. All right. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be bringing a couple of you all up onto the screen with me, because it's a lot easier for me to be able to work with you all once I kind of hear what are some of these stories? What are some of these moments I was a Yoda? What are some of these curiosities? Is this the idea? Is that the idea? Right? And a lot of times, like working on an idea, just like working on a story, it takes some finessing. It takes some finessing. Um, I'm going to walk you through um, one of the things that worked really well in my case. And this is why this program that I'm going to be launching in October, this is why it's going to be called Ideas That Ignite. Ideas That Ignite. Okay. So once you actually have that idea, once you're actually able to pull something together that you think somebody else might be able to learn from, what makes it ignite? In other words, what makes it really kind of like stand out? So first of all, we want to know that it draws some type of new conclusion, right? We talked a little bit about this at the top of the session. It draws some type of new conclusion. We're taking evidence or taking observations, and we're seeing something new in a surprising or challenging a belief, right? So if we have an idea that's kind of like been talked about already, you know, it's not really drawing any type of new conclusions. Maybe not all that great, right? One of the talks I want to play in our Facebook group is Amy Cuddy, and I can't remember the name of the talk, but she talks about the power of your body and like letting your body lead. And she talks about all these different things that you can do if you don't feel powerful, but you want to become powerful, right? And I love this one saying. I don't want to mess it up, but it's something like people often say, "Fake it till you make it," right? Fake it till you make it. And Amy Cuddy's talk, she translates that into fake it until you become it. Fake it until you become it, right? Now, that is not a huge shift in terms of what she's talking about. She's talking about like, acting like you're powerful until you become powerful, acting flirtatious until you feel and you become flirtatious, right? So drawing a new conclusion doesn't have to be this major thing that's never been heard of before. It could just be a slight little nuanced difference that could draw that new conclusion. Okay, so let's not overthink this. Let's not overthink this, but definitely want to draw some type of new conclusion. Okay, you want to make it interesting. So is this idea interesting to a broader audience? Is it interesting to a broader audience? In other words, if you're talking to somebody in your field, if you're talking to somebody in your organization, you all can probably talk all day, all night, every day, every night about your organization. You take that same thought and you talk to about it with other people, as boring as you know what. It's BS. Like nobody cares about how awesome your organization is. Nobody cares about how cool your boss is or how crappy your boss is, right? But if you're able to translate that into something that is more tangible, like more accessible to people who are not part of your organization or people who are not part of your world, then it's going to become a lot more interesting and much more compelling of an idea, right? That's going to make it ignite. And last but not least, the thing that makes stories ignite and ideas ignite is it realistic? So one of the things that I look for is okay, so this is the idea. This is the call to action. The call to action is what you want people to do or believe or to say or to think as a result of your idea or the result of your talk. Okay. But is it realistic? Can people actually do that? Can can people actually take some type of action based off of your suggestion, right? And I know you all have seen this before when you see a talk or when you see somebody who's like really like gotten into your membrane, got into your membrane, and you're like, dang, that's got me thinking, right? I want to do that. I want to like work on my body posture. I want to think about those who have special needs in a different way, or I want to think about bias from a different perspective, right? Or I want to think about the fact that I only have one narrative that I think about when I think about people in in Kenya, or I have one narrative when I think about one type of group of people, and I know that I need to shift that, right? All of these ideas about how I can change my mind are based off of other people's talks. So is it realistic? Is it factual and realistic? Okay, that's going to make an idea ignite. So I want to, whoops. Um, oh, and before I get into my example, and then before I get into bringing some of you all up onto the platform, I want to show you how this works and why it works. João in Brazil, parabéns pra você. Yeah, y'all didn't know I know how to sing and speak in Portuguese, did you? It's my brother from another mother over there. It's his birthday, so just wanted to say happy birthday to him. What's up, Serene? My video and audio guru extraordinaire for barbershop stories. I see you, brother. All right. So, one of the things that I use as a litmus test to really kind of get a sense of, you know, is this something that might be interesting to a committee like now? Is or is passing like this the litmus test? So the first thing I want you to think about is why you? Why you? Out of every single application I've ever seen for TED or TEDx, this is one that always comes up. And it makes sense. I mean, a million people could talk about equity and diversity. A million people could talk about body posture. A million people could talk about, you know, the importance of having dogs and animals in our lives. But why you? Now, once again, this goes back into the idea about being an expert, but you don't have to be the expert, as I mentioned, but you should have some type of angle or some type of expertise or something that you've done that shows that you've been thinking about this, that you've built community around this, that it's not a new topic for you. Okay, so why you? The second thing I want you to think about for the litmus test, if this is the idea that I want to lean into, is it simple enough to be explained in one sentence? Is it simple enough to be explained in one sentence? Now, I don't want you to mix up your theme, which is typically like, a couple of words or a sentence, with your idea. The theme is going to be one thing, but your idea, you need to be able to express it in one clean, crisp sentence. In my case, I wanted to translate the way that people thought about special needs and instead think about those who have special needs in terms of their gifts. One sentence, okay? Everything after that lines up into that one concise sentence. And third, why now? Why now? So one of the things that is important is to think about the fact that you want to be kind of like before the curve of things, the curve of information, the curve of onslaught of information, or before something really gets super popular, topic gets super popular. If it's already popular, then what might be that new perspective on it, right? So, like for example, a couple of years ago, it was really challenging for a lot of people to talk about issues like mental health and depression, especially amongst people of color, right? But people who started talking about this topic prior to the coronavirus are now like just their talks are just being lit up because people are like looking for this type of information now that a lot of us are like, struggling with this topic, right? Uh, Recently, I was working with Akila. I don't even know Akila. You might even be up in this group. I'm not so sure. I know you're part of the Ideas That Ignite Facebook group, but I'm not so sure if you're here today. But anyways, Akila did a talk about unschooling. unschooling, not homeschooling, but unschooling. Jamaican sister was talking about how she is able to travel the world with her children in all these different environments and lean into what they're passionate about, what they're curious about, and still have them excel exceedingly without them being in a traditional classroom. And when I learned about that, I was like, what? And she did this talk prior to the coronavirus. So as you can imagine, a lot of people are now like really passionate about this. So if your topic is something that is timely, if your topic is something that can be tied into something that's timely, it's going to be even better. In my case, I was able to make a case for myself because um, on March 2nd, I'm sorry, March 21st happened to be the last day of the TED conference. This was when I applied. And so in my application, I mentioned that the last day of the TED conference happens to be National Down Syndrome Awareness Day. It happened to be National Down Syndrome Awareness Day. So I was able to tie in a timely event into the importance of my topic, right? If you're able to find something that's timely, if it's current, if people are interested in it now, it's going to be just another great way, a great barometer to know that yes, this is something that needs to be shared now. That making sense? That making sense? I know I'm like I'm just talking at y'all today. I'm so sorry. There's just a lot of things going on today. Oh, okay, let me just jump over to my Facebook group. Makes sense so far. Yes, great info. Got it, got it, got it. Excellent. So just a quick heads up for those of you who are um, on the Facebook group. If you don't mind, there should be like a little button at the top of the screen somewhere, or at the top of this page that says allow StreamYard to access my profile, so I can actually see who is commenting, right? So I can see who's commenting. Because I'm about to like start bringing some of you all up to kind of talk about your ideas, talk about this litmus test, and that kind of stuff. So if you are on the Ideas That Ignite Facebook group, go ahead and check out that little button somewhere at the top. If you want to come on screen with me, if you don't want to share your name, you're just gonna pop up as a Facebook user like this, okay? Which is great, absolutely awesome. But you know, if I can see your face, even better. Okay, so awesome. Christina, you don't have the StreamYard button. That's because you are already set. You only have to do this once. You've already added your face, so you look like this. Okay, you look beautiful. So you're ready to go. Okay, so let me go back here to the litmus test for a moment. Not so sure I see that button. Check out, I think like somewhere. Oh, it's on your iPad. Okay, I got you, Poonam. I'm not so sure where it would be on the iPad. I believe it's somewhere at the top of this stream. But you know what? It's not an important issue. Don't worry about it if you don't see it, because I'm just gonna bring you up on screen in any case pretty soon. Okay. So I want to now talk a little bit about my own process, and I'm gonna go back for a quick second here, right? When we talked about ideas, one of the reasons why we spent the past month, for those of you who have already been in this group, we worked on the past month just looking at stories, personal stories. Because for me, I know that a lot of people start off with a personal story before actually getting into the speech, and before the speech gets into the idea worth spreading. Okay. So many people. Some people work backwards. And I'm going to talk to you about both ways. Those of you who have stories that can lead into ideas, and those of you who have ideas that we have to extract the stories from. Okay. But for today, I'm going to focus on starting off with a personal story leading into the idea. Okay. So here we go. A little bit here. Okay, so for those of you who were part of the group earlier, you may remember some of these ways that we were talking about significance. that your story is not about a sequence of events. Your story is not just about the emotion, but the story is about what shifted, what changed. If you have a flat story where nothing changed, your story sucks. Okay? If you have a speech that does not have a story in it, your speech sucks. Sorry, I know I'm like a little animated today, but but here's what I want you to think about. Okay, so first, the first shift is an internal shift. So, did the events of your story, did it change your personal perspective? Did it shift your personal mind about something, right? So, in my case, I'll give you a quick synopsis of the story that I shared. As I mentioned, I wanted to be an Olympic athlete. I was at UCLA. Um, I got injured my freshman year at UCLA. Um, my brother comes to run at the Special Olympics, also at UCLA. I'm like, yes, like one twin's down, the other one's like coming to like rise up, right? I was amped. I was like, this is it. Like if I couldn't win the race, Dwayne could, right? At the towards the end of the story, though, Dwayne doesn't win the race, and Dwayne doesn't go on to anything after this. It's kind of like the end of the road, and I was bummed. I was honestly bummed. So the first time that I shared the story, I realized that my shift needed to be about my idea of what it meant to be a good sport. Because Dwayne was out there on the field having a good time, high fiving the coaches, hugging the volunteers. And I was like, man, I thought I knew what it meant to be like an athlete. I knew what it meant to be, um, in sports, to compete, to thrive. But actually, my shift was an internal shift. It needed to be more about sportsmanship, and I wasn't being a good sport, right? Now, that same moment did not change. But the second time and the third time I shared that story, there was a different shift. It was an external shift. So instead of me talking about the importance of sportsmanship in that lesson, I instead talked about my relationship with my twin brother. So keep in mind, nothing changed. Did these events shift my relationship with others? It changed my relationship with my twin brother because although I was, even though we're equals, I always thought of myself as having to like, look out for him, make sure that he's okay. Um, that changed my relationship with him because I realized that actually he was the one looking out for me, right? And I was able to hinge the story on what it meant to be the able-bodied twin, and then what it meant to be the twin that actually needed to learn, right? And so that was the crux of the story. Yet the third way that I thought about it was how did this shift my world view? How did this shift my how I thought about a larger cause, a larger issue, a larger topic? And this is when the gold started to seep in, because keep in mind I applied to TED a couple of times, but it wasn't until I was able to concisely talk about the change in my worldview that the idea got accepted. The shift wasn't only about me being a better sport. It wasn't only about my changed relationship with my twin brother, but it was also about having others, those who were in the audience, think differently about those who had special needs. And so it changed the way that I talked about those who have special needs as instead as those who have special gifts. Bernadette, what? Hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are talking about getting your ideas lit, ready for TED 2021. It's a long process, so we're gearing up. We're gearing up to get some people on the stages, ready to light some stuff up. Light it up. All right. So um, so this is my audition video. This is my 1 minute audition video from 2013. But before I get into this, I want to let me go back to y'all. Okay, got it. Awesome. Awesome. So I want to take a second before I play my 1 minute audition video. I want y'all to get ready. I want y'all to get ready. if you are willing to come on the screen with me, I'm going to have you side by side. I want to talk out your idea. Talk out, like, what it is that you have in mind. Just go ahead and give me a thumbs up in the Facebook group, or say, like, Dawn, I'm in, like, I'm ready, let's do this. Go ahead and put that comment in the Facebook group, or put that, yeah, sorry Instagram, but this is gonna have to be on the Idea That Ignite page. So, but we'll talk you through it. So go ahead and put a thumbs up, or just, like, let me join into the Facebook chat. And while we're doing that, I'm going to play for you my 1-minute audition video. Okay. Okay, cool. Natasha, I see you're in. Devin, I see you're in. Okay, great. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Actually, let's see. You know what? Before I do that, before I play the video, I'm gonna bring you all up on the screen, because I can play my audio a little bit later, but I want to bring some of y'all. I want to bring y'all up to the screen. So let's see. Give me a quick second here. Just give me a quick second here. I just want to share your instructive notes. Okay, great. So copy. So go ahead. I just put in the comment. Uh-oh, that is not the right. Oh, there we go. Cool. Devin, why don't we start off with you? Go ahead and click that button, and go ahead and join me in the studio. Join me in the studio. You should see a little button at the bottom of it. Interesting. Not so sure, Stephanie. Audio gone. Shoot. Seems like I might be having some technical issues. Oh, it's back. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, great. Awesome. Maybe it was my headphone. I just kind of kicked back in my headphone. Okay, cool. So awesome. Okay, so Christina or Stephanie or Devin, somebody go ahead and just join me in the room. I think you just have to click on the link that I sent. Just click on the link that I sent, streamyard.com/JB blah, blah, blah. Let's go ahead and get some of y'all up on the screen. Let's go ahead and get some of y'all up on the screen. Is this working? Not sure I'm in the right place because I don't have access to the link. I can only just see it on the screen. Okay, give me one quick second. Give me one quick second, y'all. I'm just going to invite y'all personally. Okay. So, Christina, I believe you have a link now. Devin, you should have a link as well. Might need to put the link in the comments. Okay, I thought I did. Let's see. Okay. Got it. 1 second. 1 second. What up, Gelado? We are about to bring some people onto the screen so that we can actually share some stories. Let's see if we can get some people on the screen. Oh, here we go. All right.
Let me see if I can get some better light.
Okay, here we go. What up, Devin?
Hey, Don.
How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Excellent. So, quick question before we jump into this. I noticed that the link. Oh, and here's Christina. Can Christina join us as well? Is that cool?
Of course. This is all you.
Okay, great. All right, so we got Devin and Christina.
Hi, Christina.
Hi.
Excellent. So before we jump into your idea, I'm curious to know, like, did the link not pop up in the comments in the group?
It did eventually.
It didn't show up in the comments for me, but it did show up on the screen, but I couldn't get it off of the screen. So I had to literally type it back in.
Okay. And Devin, for you, it did eventually pop up in the group?
Yeah, first it showed up on the screen and I was like, it's not there. And then it showed up in the like comment section.
Okay.
But I was on Safari and it said I needed to switch to Chrome, so that's what I did. I'm on Chrome now.
Got it. Okay. Just want to make sure that, like, going forward, that we that I know how to, like, properly invite people onto this thing. All right. So for those of you who are on Instagram, we're about to dive into some stories and some ideas. If you're checking this out, you might want to join us on the Ideas That Ignite Facebook group. Okay, Ideas That Ignite Facebook group. Otherwise, I'll be talking you through some of the stuff that we'll be hearing in just a moment here. Okay. Okay, great, awesome. All right, so let's start off with you, Devin, because I know that I've been seeing you quite a bit with, like, storytelling stuff and like really getting your stories out there. And so first of all, why don't you just kind of like let people know a little bit about who you are, why you joined the group, and then we'll dig into your to the idea.
Yeah, I'm pretty new to storytelling. I've been telling stories for a little over a year, and I started telling stories on the Moth stage. And I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I've just been trying to tell as many stories as I can because for most of my life, I have been just keeping the stories to myself and hiding them away. So that's usually the stories that I talk about, pains that I hid away. And I joined this group because I wanted to, make storytelling and speaking more of a main thing and less of a hobby. Yeah.
Excellent. And you recently spoke also at Rise Up, Speak Up, was it, in Connecticut?
Yeah, Speak Up.
Yeah. Great. I would love to hear your stories and actually, like, check that out sometime. So please invite me to the next one.
Yeah, I've got one coming this Friday, which I guess that's tomorrow. Yeah.
It's tomorrow. With who?
Yeah. It's this new show called Melanin Stories Matter.
Okay.
I actually have 3 stories within this, like, next week. It's kind of a packed week, but
excellent.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Excellent. So what kind of idea do you think that you might want to share with an audience in the future?
Yeah, I am thinking about the idea that's like mostly based off the story of my life. Like I said, I've been hiding. I kind of just repressed away all the pain from my life. So the idea that I've been trying to formulate is around the idea that hiding isn't the same as healing. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes if you repress away your pain, you can turn your victimhood into, like, villainy because you hurt so many people around you based on the things that you've kept inside of you. And it's kind of time to just, like, for people who have repressed, to, instead of hiding them away, to face the pain head on and try and get to a place where you can dig it up and heal from it and not just, brush it under the rug. So
instead of suppressing like pain or anger, actually like bringing it out or trying to talk about it openly.
Yeah.
And are you able to talk about where this is coming from?
Yes. So this is like I said, for my whole life, I have done this. So when I was 6 years old, my mom's youngest brother, was shot and killed on the front lawn of my grandparents' house. And they live next door to us. And my mom, my dad, my grandma were all there. And he was unarmed. And when he died, we left and moved to California shortly after. And I saw how my mom, handled that in her life by hiding it away. And I thought that, that's the way that you deal with pain. And I picked that up and I used that method throughout my whole life for 30 years. And just like going through all moments of racism and microaggressions, growing up in a white community and having that to be the way that I deal with all these pains. And only like maybe a year and a half ago or two, I realized how much that was impacting me and it was controlling my life and beginning to control the way I was parenting my two boys. And so once I realized that it was controlling me, I thought it would be a good time to not let that happen and to instead trying to go back and, deal with a lot of these pains that I thought I had under control, but they were actually controlling me.
Mm. Can you give us an example of how it was manifesting in the way that you were raising your voice?
Yeah, I actually told a story on the Moth maybe a year ago now. And I had told my son about an incident when I was 21. I had gotten, pulled over by the cops. Actually, it was parking my car, and a cop car pulled me off to the side, and they had me sit on the curb, and like 4 cop cars ended up coming and surrounding me and searching my car and searching through my trunk. And I had told my son that story many times. He always asked to hear it over and over. And he always asked, how come I didn't report the cops? And for a long time, I had been telling him that like, I didn't report them because I knew nothing was going to happen. And like, I just, I didn't want to waste time doing that. And I told him that for a long time until we were in France and I was in a bus and I went to help this couple. Their passports were like exposed in their backpack. And I like, tapped them on the shoulder to tell them that their backpack was open. And I ended up zipping it closed for them because he had his son in his arms and he couldn't reach. And then the wife actually ended up like trying to pretend like she was kissing his cheek, but ended up like whispering like, something about me being suspicious. And he turned the backpack away from me and like into the crowd of people on the other side of him. And it was like a moment that I realized that like even our tiny little words that we say matter. And I had been telling my son for like many years that we don't have the power to stand up against any of these incidents, that basically our Black lives don't matter. This is the truth of it, and move on from there. Don't try and fight against the system. And as a father, that really hit hard, that I was telling him that he has no power and that his words don't matter. So a lot of those different incidents. I also had many incidents recently with the things that are going on and realizing that I never had an interaction with a cop that was positive, and it caused him and his younger brother to then be suspicious of cops and afraid of cops just as like a fact of life.
Right.
And that's not things I would want my sons to believe, but those are definitely things I've implanted in them. And especially for my older son, it's a lot of it's really heavy, and I know that it's a lot of undoing that's necessary in terms of the things that I've subconsciously told him. So and then there's other things that have manifested in my relationships with other people in my life as well.
Right. So I'm hearing a couple of different things here. I'm curious to know, before I launch into this question, I'm curious to know like what angle or what perspective therapy or kind of like healing through different traditional or untraditional means, what that has meant to you, if you've engaged with it or not.
Yeah, I've recently started doing therapy, and it's been really helpful. And I actually had tried to start getting into therapy like maybe a year and a half ago. But I got finding a therapist is much different than actually having a good therapist that helps. So I had gone to a therapist in Manhattan, and I had got there she didn't have her name on the door. I showed up and it was like 10 minutes into our appointment, 15 minutes. I'm like, am I in the right place? And I finally like peeked my head in and she was like in with another client. And she ended up coming out like 20 minutes into our session and was like, don't ever do that. And I was like, this is my first time ever going to therapy. Like I just showed up at the time and we're 20 minutes in. So I'm really confused. And
wow.
She's like blaming me for being like opening the door. And then like 30 minutes in, she said, you know what? I had the wrong time. I apologize. And I'm like, is this like some therapy trick to like try and throw me off? Or like, what is happening? She's putting her feet up on the desk, like all in my face and stuff. So I'm like, I'm not going to go to therapy again. And I kind of took a long time to like try another one. And storytelling kind of became my therapy, to just like get in a community of people that provide a safe space within my community, and getting to the heart of these matters in a safe space where there was people like me. And this, I don't know if it's obvious, but the lady that I went to was not Black. She was a white lady from Manhattan. But now the therapist that I have is a person of color, not a Black person, but very helpful. And I just think that, I think all people need therapy, but I think especially Black people, and I think especially Black males, but it's not necessarily something that we as a community do. So I started the storytelling show myself with that idea of like, until people are willing to say like, I'm going to therapy, we can get in a community and talk like real and share our hearts in a space that's like vulnerable and somewhat of therapy.
Excellent. So before I jump down to you, Christina, at least you're down on my screen. Two quick things for you, Devin. So would you say that your idea then is more so about learning the techniques so that people don't necessarily suppress their emotions, or is it more so about the importance of like leaning into and actually finding ways to heal from our past, or kind of finding ways to like share a different perspective on experiences that may have not been positive?
Yeah, I think the second, just because I know for myself and so many people within my community that there's already a huge past of like trauma and repressed pains. I think it would be ideal to go forward and not continue to repress them. But I think maybe it works in tandem, but I think for me, it happened in a way where it was like, go back for the past ones. And then from here, let's not do that anymore as a practice for life. Like we're not going to keep hiding away things and think we're okay. So I don't know, they kind of happened in tandem. So.
Got it. Excellent. So it really sounds like a lot of the threads of your idea are starting to take shape based off of these experiences, based off these things. It's timely. It's important. So it sounds like you're definitely on your way.
Yeah, that's why I joined the group, to try and weed through some of these things. You've been really helpful with like all of these talks, even the story stuff. And then today with like, I jotted down all of what you had there with the Yoda and everything. That was really helpful.
Awesome. Excellent. So give me a quick second. I'm gonna shut off my Instagram, because I'm so sorry, Instagram. You probably can't hear anything that's going on right now. Join us on the Ideas That Ignite page. That's where most of the activity, most of the action is popping. I just love going on to Instagram because y'all are amazing too. And but most of the action, most of the training, all the stuff that we're going to be going into for the next month is going to be on the Ideas That Ignite Facebook group. So go ahead and join us over there. Sorry if you couldn't hear anything for like the past like 5 minutes or so here. But I love you all. I'm gonna sign off of Instagram. Take care. Okay, excellent. So Christina, let's jump down to you.
Well, first, I just want to say, Devin, that I think that's incredible. And a lot of what you said really resonated with me. I think it's amazing. And I really look forward to your story.
Thank you.
Same. So Christina, I know you've also been an early adopter of this group. I've been seeing you pop in, and we've been having some conversations offline. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself to the group and let people know what brought you here?
Sure. I am an author. I just had a novel come out called Beauty. It actually examines stereotypes of the Asian woman, and It actually has been doing really well, but it came out during COVID, which is pretty horrendous, but it is what it is. And I think I'm just one of these people who, like, instead of getting defeated, I just want to continue growing and stretching myself. So one of the biggest fears I've always had ever since I was a child was speaking. And I actually, ironically, do a fair amount of it. However, whenever I have to actually organize my thoughts in any cohesive way, I get nervous that I'm going to stutter or I'm going to like mess up what I want to say or all that stuff. So it isn't that I'm not familiar with the story. I'm just not familiar with this kind of story. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw you, I just thought, you know what, this is the opportunity that I really want to take. And this is the manner in which I want to grow myself.
Excellent. So did launching your story, your book during COVID hurt or help? Because I can imagine that some people are probably like a little bit more introspective now and kind of taking their time and reading stuff, but I'm assuming, or I don't want to assume, what was the effect?
Well, I think the problem that most authors are having is that, when you do a book tour, you go all around the country and you meet different people. And so you get exposure, people get exposed to you, they see your book and all that stuff. You get to interact with people, they get to know you, they get to hopefully like you, and which is, a good thing, right? So you can sell books that way, but you also make connections. And the one problem with COVID is that you might have social media connections, but it's difficult to get outside of that network, right? So to meet those people who you wouldn't normally meet, right?
Got it.
So that's one of the issues that I've been facing. And I'm not really quite sure what to do about it, but it is what it is, like I said.
Got it. That totally makes sense. Okay, cool. And just a heads up, so sorry, like typically these sessions are an hour. We're going a little bit longer today, had a little bit of some technical stuff and wanted to make sure we could bring some people onto the screen. I'll be sharing the videos and whatnot like that. I'm going to do that in a whole other session when we actually just like look at video applications, because now that I think about it, it is its own beast. So we'll do that maybe next week. All right. So awesome. Just wanted to let people know that I'm not leaving them. I will share these videos, but not today.
Christina, did you say the name of your book was Beauty?
Yes. Okay. It's a novel.
Yeah, I've been reading lots of books during COVID, and my wife is Asian, so I'll either buy it for myself or buy it for her for
sure. Excellent. So Christina, so I know that you have a couple of different ideas that you've been playing around with. Why don't you tell me about one of them that's really kind of like either sticking with you or resonating with you, and why?
I think the one I want to talk about is about how my Buddhist beliefs helped me to reframe events that happened in my life and understand my life better and appreciate my life better. So, you were talking a little bit about change of perspective, and I feel like it really fundamentally helped me to see things radically differently, and really feel lucky that certain things that in the past I would have said, why me? Why does this kind of thing always happen to me? Or, it's really discouraging and, whatever. But when I look back and I really reframe things, it makes me realize, like, oh my God, if I hadn't had that experience, I would not know what to do in this other instance.
Right.
And I would be clueless and it would have been a train wreck, right? So that's sort of what I want to talk about.
So you want to talk about how you can have a different perspective on things that were potentially traumatizing in the past, or
something that you would like normally think of as negative, right? something that you're like, well, and I think that a lot of people do that, like, why me? And what I wanted to say was that yes, in a way, it's you, because you are learning something that can potentially help you later or in the current moment. And if you don't look at your life that way, you just feel like all these bad things happen, and it seems kind of pointless why they do, but they're actually like gems, right? And you're just treating them like coal.
So two things that are coming up for me. First off, can you tell us how or why you got into the Buddhist track? Like, how did that happen?
So I've always been a little bit on this track. When I was in college, I kind of had an identity crisis. I too grew up in a very white suburb, and it was really, really difficult being different and being Asian. And I would say that I had a lot of issues with who I was as a Chinese American person. And it wasn't until I got older that I started to really love myself. And it was really not an easy process. It really took a lot of learning. And so I started studying Buddhism and trying to just understand myself, like understand why we're here, like all the
just randomly, like
all the existential questions that you have in life, like who am I, why am I here, why do these things happen, all those things. And so in college it's one thing when you're learning stuff. When you get into the real world, like a lot of that stuff kind of falls away and you just deal with life, right? But then at a certain point in my life, I ended up being really sick. And it was the kind of sick where doctors thought it was like in my head, like I was one of those people who, you always hear about doctors kind of dismissing people. I was one of those people. For 15 years, my life just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And it got to the point where it was difficult to even get out of bed. So I went to different doctors, of course, and every time they would say, you're in perfect health. And I would just be beside myself. And at one point they wanted to put me on meds and everything. And I was like, I have nothing to be upset about. And they're like, oh, it's like chemical or whatever, which was kind of depressing to me, but whatever. So I go through the whole thing and they're like, it turns out about 15 years later, I ended up having blood in my stool, and it turned out they found something in my colon that they had no idea what it was. So they finally find out from the Mayo Clinic that it's something called an amyloid, which is really rare. And at the time, nobody really knew anything about it, except that older people get it, like people in their 90s. And I was like in my 30s, and it started when I was like in college, really. So I have this bizarre disease, and they're like, oh, you know what? We need to do chemo and bone marrow transplant right away. And I was like, hold on 1 second. For 15 years, you have been telling me it's in my head. And now you're saying, like, we find out for sure that I'm actually correct. And
that's something else.
Chemo and bone marrow transplant.
Right.
So I'm like, hold on. So I get a second opinion at the Mayo Clinic, and they're like, look, you can go and do what you want, but 6 months later, when you come back, if it's still happening, this is the treatment. So I'm like, deal. I go off and I start doing all kinds of alternative methods and whatever. And I start to feel better. Like it gets to the point where 3 months later, 4 months later, I'm playing tennis.
Wait. So was this prior to you entering into the Buddhist lifestyle, or this during or after?
So this is before.
This is before. Okay.
Before. I mean, I did meditate, but this is before.
Okay.
And so I start to feel better when I go back to the Mayo Clinic. Guess what? Not happening. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. That's what the doctor tells me.
Okay.
So
okay.
I go off and I'm like, cool. And I'm like, prior to that, I had one kid and I was like, how do people have another one? Like, why would they do that to themselves? Like, that makes no sense, right? Because I was exhausted. But then I got better and I was like, wow, I really want another one. I totally get why people want another one. So I got pregnant again and I had my next child. And it turned out that my son had a syndrome of birth defects, and he needed many surgeries, and he wasn't getting better. He wasn't thriving. As soon as he had to start eating solids, he fell off the curve and just became more and more emaciated. So that by 2, he was like failure to thrive and severely like not good. So then I'm thinking to myself, what is it that's going on here? Like I'm waiting for the doctors to figure out what's going on. And then I'm like, maybe I should figure out what's going on. Maybe.
So real quick, hold on. So before you get into that step of the story, so part of your transition, because there's a lot that's happening in your story as it relates to like different ideas that could be pulled out, right? And I'm curious to know if you looking into your diagnosis and you looking into the diagnosis of your son, if that is a different through line, or if that might be another idea that you have explored or that you've thought about exploring, or are you still like leaning and like leading into how the Buddhist perspective helped you to understand, helped you to deal with the trauma or the issues?
Well, so I'm leading into that
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm sorry, I'm being long-winded, but
that's okay. It's okay.
So then it ends up that so I start to research and I start to use some of the methods that worked for me on my son, and he starts to slowly get better to the point where he is 9 right now and he's thriving.
Wait. So when you said the methods that you use for yourself, can you be more specific?
So I did a lot of really wacky things. Like I had a person this sounds crazy, but I had a person muscle test and figure out what I should be eating and shouldn't be eating. And I did like all kinds of things. Like I had got colonics. He actually gets an enema every day. But so like there was a lot of like weird, wacky things. The food was a big part of it, like changing my entire diet. And then there were other things too. I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, I had this woman muscle test different supplements that would be more helpful, and she ended up doing all of this for my son, and then I ended up basically, what you were saying before about my son's diagnosis and my diagnosis, I ended up taking responsibility and really researching and getting him to the correct hospital and getting him the correct, like the medical supplies, I ended up getting him a nurse. I got him the support he needed to go to school. So like step by step, like built up our life again.
Right. Wow. So it's so amazing because from what I'm hearing, there are a bunch of different ideas that you can pull out from this experience or these experiences, amazing that you were able to actually like find ways to heal yourself and your family, despite what the doctors were saying. I mean, that's one thing that's kind of like standing out to me. Being proactive. I mean, and actually like, being able to like address the things in a way that was systematic, felt fulfilling, with both head and heart, there's a lot of different ideas that could be distilled just from that one story. It's similar to my own experience, in a way that a billion different ideas can come from that one main experience, Excellent, excellent. I want to be able to flesh this out a little bit more, but I also want to be respectful of both your guys' time. Because I know I just kind of like brought you all up into this kind of quickly, and also like respectful of those who are still checking this out online. But what I'd love to do is each week going forward, we're going to be continuing to build from first the idea, and then actually like going into a little bit more about what is the through line. So the next couple of weeks we're going to be tying in those stories into the idea, right? Because right now what we might have a bunch of different ideas, or we might have a bunch of different stories. But kind of going back to that analogy that we were talking about with the stories, like the Chipotle burrito, right? We get to pick out one main core story, a couple supporting stories, and that's going to take us through the through line of the main idea worth spreading, right? So you probably have already done this if you're a writer, but go ahead and just jot down all these different moments. You were here with us last week with the sticky notes.
Yeah, I did the sticky notes, but it went nuts. It went crazy.
Okay. Okay, no worries. Go ahead though and do me a favor, because next week I'm either going to do videos or the through line. So go ahead and keep that information and start to map it out. Like map out all the different ways and all the different tangents that it might go, because we're going to start to actually pull out the stories that are going to like hit the best, the strongest, as we put together that idea.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Awesome. All right. So I want to just wrap it up. Do you guys, either of you, have any questions, comments, anything that I can help you with between now and next week?
Oh, can I say one more thing about the Buddhism thing?
Oh, of course, yes.
And the Buddhism part is that we're here to learn lessons. And so, people always say, oh, you're given these lessons to learn in life. And that's very Buddhist, like that if you don't learn the lesson you're supposed to learn, you get it again. And so for me, that's what really that was about.
About learning the lesson of what specifically?
Taking responsibility and
okay.
Yeah.
And is that something that you wouldn't have found in, I don't know, Islam or Muslims or Christians, or why Buddhism?
I'm not sure Catholics, I was raised Catholic, and I know Catholics do not believe that, but I mean, it's very God-centric, and Buddhism is very, like, you're responsible. And, you get these, lessons because you chose them, sort of kind of deal.
Okay, got it. And the reason why... Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say I really connect with that concept even without being Buddhist, but I appreciate that is like a central point of Buddhism. But I really connect with both the taking accountability for things that are happening, and that's kind of been a part of the story too. And I just wanted to say that I got the book, and that awesome. It seems like the thing that you were talking about with your coal to gems analogy would kind of apply to this COVID time, because you had talked about being kind of nervous about public speaking, and you just gave a whole thing to us very naturally. And I feel like there's a lot of shows right now that could break those up into stories, and you could already be doing what you were planning to do pre-COVID, just not 100%. In real life.
100%. I mean, that's a great idea, Devin, because there are so many virtual storytelling shows that are on right now. If you want me to send you a link, there's a couple of Facebook groups that are just focused on virtual storytelling shows. But there's also a lot of if you go to New York City storytelling group, or Chicago or San Francisco, there's a bunch of storytelling groups. A lot of them are also have people who are hosting virtual shows as well. A lot of times you might have 5 minutes, you might have 10 minutes. I don't know of any of them that kind of go for 15. But they're great practice in terms of actually honing in on one key idea or one key moment and kind of building from there. So that's an excellent idea, Devin, and I'm definitely going to check out your book too.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I also wanted to mention the whole. I'm glad that you brought back the Buddhist thing, because when you think about your idea, the idea might not be for everybody to become Buddhist in order for them to understand, but it is to understand the principles of what thinking in a different way or thinking in a different perspective can do in terms of healing for yourself. Right?
Yeah, and I'm not looking at Buddhism in terms of the religion. I'm looking at Buddhism in terms of the philosophy.
There we go. And so you see how, like a subtle shift like that. You're not telling your audience or telling people to become Buddhist, but you are telling them to that you can shift the way that you experience life.
Right.
Great. So all those little keys and nuances. Language is the core of ideas, right? Language is the core of ideas. And if you're able to really articulate something as a slight nuance, something that's slightly different, it's going to resonate, it's going to stick, and people are gonna get it, right? So excellent. Cool. Was there anything else that you all wanted to share, or any questions or any other thoughts?
I know I'm really excited for continuing these sessions. Every single one I leave with like so much, like a full 2-page of just notes right here, and a lot of things rushing in my head for sure.
Awesome. I'm finally like getting all the stuff like put together. I know last week people were asking like, what's the link for the workbook? What's the link for the workbook? So I finally got it put up there. But now I'm realizing that these links aren't clickable. So, every week I'm working some things out, trying to make sure that you guys are taken care of. But for those of you who are out there who are still watching, we are going to be kicking off the actual program with coaching and mentorship next month, the middle of next month until December. So I believe it's going to be a 9-week program where we're going to be doing a lot more stuff like this in small group. Right now I'm wrapping up my story to speech to sale program, which we're wrapping that one up today. So that I can make some time and some space to put together the curriculum, the training, like what we need to do to get you all on the stages of TED in 2021. All right. So just kind of keep an eye out on this page, because every Thursday we'll be doing these mini workshops, be fine tuning some of the content, and then boom, come October, we're off to the races. All right.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. I'm so excited, y'all. I am so blessed that y'all have been part of this journey since jump. Thanks for taking the time to jump on the screen and to share with the world, your ideas. And let's keep on doing this.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
Of course, that's what I'm here for. All right, y'all. I'm going to end the broadcast, but that doesn't mean we have to end this conversation. I'm just going to end the broadcast. So bye, Facebook. We'll see you soon. See you next week. Same time, same place. Invite a friend. Bye.